Welcome to the 24th episode of the Animal Riot Podcast, brought to you by Animal Riot Press, a literary press for books that matter. It's your producer, Katie, here, and this episode has been edited to reflect our new name. If you're new to the Animal Riot community, welcome, and you can find out more about us at animalriotpress.com. Now on to the episode with your host, Brian Birnbaum, and today's guest, Steve McCondichie.
Here today with Steve McCondichie.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Beautiful, man.
Co-founder of Southern Fried Karma Press, along with his wife and two kids. Adult children, I assume?
Yes.
Yes.
Adultish? No,
Adultish.
they're very adult, yeah.
Yeah? How old are they?
Allison is 25 and Davis is 22.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're adults.
But they're both, yeah.
I guess in 2019 they're adultish. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's Steve. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Welcome. It's great to be here.
We love Steve. We're partnering with Steve in a lot of ways. We'll get into that. And we have our lovely producers, Katie Rainey.
All of me.
Plural. Co-founder of our little enterprise here. This episode's brand of fuckery is brought to you by my continuing detox. I've currently got half my stack of supplements waiting on the kitchen floor with the other half waiting in some Grange on 146th Street after USPS failed to deliver them into my domicile, and I spent 45 minutes on hold with the USPS. Thank you, Uncle Sam, federal government. Fuck you guys. I love you. God bless America. Yeah, Steve has saluted. I will salute.
We're all
to
saluting.
The troops. I love it. That's not sarcastic. Yeah. So we're talking L-tyrosine. We're talking GABA. We're talking multivitamins, minerals, amino acids. We're talking healthy, wholesome motherfucking 2019. Let's start.
Well, if you're going to talk about all the ridiculous amount of supplements that are in our house, I think you need to talk about your adverse reaction to vitamin C.
A little fucking prologue to our episode that we shan't come back to. Yeah, so I took vitamin C and niacin to start off my little detox, and I'm not sure what happened. Whether I had like a liver toxicity issue or like serotonin syndrome or some shit. Like, these are my prevailing theories. And like everyone I talked to was like, "Oh, you probably had niacin flush." I was like, "Really?" I had diarrhea for fucking 4 days.
It was not
and
the niacin
sweating
flush.
And fever. So like, no, that's not a niacin flush.
I didn't know there was
you
such
assholes.
thing.
Yeah.
No.
So yeah, something fucked up happened, and I'm going to get blood work done. But who cares? It's all past.
So
I'm not going to find it.
With all of the experiments that Brian has been doing with like weird nootropics and whatnot from China, it was the vitamin C that did.
No, not
in.
the niacin. It was definitely the niacin.
It's funnier to say vitamin C. Just
Vitamin
let me
C.
have
Okay,
this. The vitamin C took him down.
Can we sing the graduation song now or something?
Yeah. I don't remember
either.
Okay, anyway.
All right, so yeah, this is it.
So this is our podcast, Steve. This is how we do it.
Yeah. I love nootropics.
Which ones do you use? Curious.
So I was using Qualia or something like that.
I never heard of that one.
Yeah, I was using
heard
it.
of
It's got like bark tree liver in it.
Trees have liver? Fuck.
Well, it was anyway. If you take vitamins, I would recommend taking nootropics for your brain. If you don't take vitamins, I wouldn't recommend it.
Interesting.
Why?
Because
they use the vitamins, right?
Well, the science coming down on whether they work or not tends more to have a stronger placebo effect than actual results. So, but if you take vitamins and you're like down with them, go for it.
See, that's the thing.
If you're like you take it and you're not sure whether it's going to work or not. Mm-hmm. Save you $47.99 per month.
Hey,
subscribe
Steve,
to our books or something. Go buy 4 fucking books, right?
Steve, I agree. Actually, they're more worth it. But Steve, here's the thing: if you're taking the real nootropics, that's the case. But if you're taking drugs that are masquerading as nootropics, then they fucking work.
Okay. Well, yeah. I was.
Which is more my bad. Okay, yeah. So let's start. Let's talk about your trajectory to starting SFK and your book and everything. Let's do that. Okay. Even though we'll do a reading at the end.
My fellow Southerner.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You make
from Atlanta.
You make my lilt come out.
The second American capital for Jews.
Is
Atlanta. Yeah. I mean, I think so. New York is definitely the capital of the world, but Atlanta's got a shit ton of Jews. Yeah.
Really? I had no idea.
So
shout out to my tribe down there.
We published a book called American Judas last October, and it's a dystopian speculative fiction about America becoming a fundamental Christian theocracy.
Oh, yeah?
It's an interesting story in itself. But Mickey Dubrow, the author, grew up Jewish in Chattanooga, which is Tennessee, which is not the second largest
Definitely not.
Jewish capital of anywhere.
No.
And it's a whole different. He and I
They
had
were
a lot of conversations.
They were the last bastion of the Confederacy or something.
Yeah, Lookout Mountain. But we had a whole lot of conversations over the process of making his book about what it was like to grow up in the South, where I don't know about UK, but I'd go into the gym, for the school assembly, right? Do they still have those anyway?
Yeah. Well,
and the guy would sneak in a faith in action or some sort of Christian message, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, that's not allowed.
I mean, I went to Catholic school, so that shit wasn't sneaking in anywhere.
Yeah.
It was blatant.
Well, and I went to Episcopalian school, but there was a little gap when I couldn't kind of do either one. It's a whole other subject. So I went to public school.
Well, I think the city boy Jew is missing the taboo here. What's the problem here?
He's saying in a public school they were talking about God.
The preaching, yeah.
Oh, okay. So they were straight up brought in
straight up
preachers.
evangelizing.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And
I didn't know if it was just some like subliminal Christian message.
No,
there's
nothing subliminal about it. So it's a whack in the head.
Right.
And so his grandfather was actually one of the first Jews in Chattanooga. There's a whole. He came over from Russia or Ukraine, I believe it was. But the neat thing about that hearing that story is Mickey shared that in a bookstore one time at reading a conversation we did, and it was great. It was good.
I didn't know if it was in Chattanooga or
no, it was in Amelia in Florida. It's Story and Song Neighborhood Book and Beach Show. Hey, Mark and Donna, hope you can hear this. But it was so getting back to the trajectory of Southern Fried Korma, and so we describe ourselves as a mission with a business, right? Mm-hmm. And that mission, to put succinctly, is to tell a million tales of y'all means all. So stories like Mickey need to find an audience, and so that's where we started, and it came really from summer of 2015. I was up here trying to land an agent because everybody has to have a New York City agent, right?
New York City. Yeah. I like the way you say that.
Yeah. New York City
agent. I was trying not to overdo that one, but I didn't make it. Anyway, and I started seeing the different possibilities to publish, and the way the path to publishing, and finding that broader audience has really changed. At the same time that happened, Dylan Roof goes into the church in North Charleston, South Carolina, murders 9 innocent people on a Wednesday night prayer service.
Right.
And those two ideas, the business of publishing and the mission, galvanized at that moment. I said, I just can still feel it viscering my body. Dylan Roof's face is everywhere on CNN or whatever. And I said, fuck that. He's not going to become the face of the South.
Yeah.
I'm not going to allow it to happen.
Yeah.
So that was that kind of moment kind of crystallized our vision, and we started Southern Fried Korma LLC shortly after that. And it was December 2015, and we did one book our first year.
Hey, we got the same trajectory going.
Yeah. we did, so the next year would have been after 2016. We did that book, came out in 2017. In 2018, we did 8 books. 2019, we're doing 10. And we're setting the schedule now for 2020 what form of publishing really looks like now as a small press, independent press. Personally, I prefer the term fiercely independent press or publisher.
That's what we call scaling to all of our aspiring MBA.
Yeah, so it is. It's a big. You that's in my wheel. I've spent a lot of time in the past year figuring out what you can scale in the publishing business and how you do. There's a model between what we'll call the small press, who does a very select number of really curated, beautifully artistic literary work, right? And that is either poetry, short collections, or nonfiction or fiction, versus what is this independent publisher who's like I can throw like a Grey Wolf or a Melville House or what Algonquin used
Coffee
to be.
House.
Yeah. Source Books is one model. Source Books started in her garage in 1987. She grew it to where she was doing 400 books a year.
I can't believe that these people did stuff before the internet.
Yeah.
Fucking A.
And so Source Books just sold out 45% of their business to Penguin Random House.
Wow.
So
45% of their business. What does that mean? They just
in
have
other
a
words,
stake?
yeah, they
just have a stake, so they're still running it.
They're still running. Yeah, she's that fiercely independent. She wasn't going to sell out completely.
Yeah.
Or
God,
maybe,
we're on an episode of Shark Tank right now. I love it. You're ready.
Soon people are going to get to hear about the Southern Fried Karma Business School.
Seriously. Fucking
literary author entrepreneurship business school.
I'm an autodidact. I'll fucking do it. I went to Maryland. I got into their business program, and I smoked too much weed to learn anything, so I dropped out and switched to psychology.
I'm fucking shocked.
I know you are, man. But yeah, that's an amazing origin story. Like, especially because, I don't know if it's your press or the sheer anonymity of shootings due to the sheer volume of them. But every little bit helps. I'm sure it's the former. But no. In all seriousness, though, it does happen in a moment. There has to be a moment where it's like it feels like there was nothing there,
right?
And then all of a sudden you've made this decision, and it's like your whole life has changed in your mind.
Yeah.
In the matter of moments,
You've made a commitment. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your next step? You saw that the shooting happened.
We
You're
formed,
like,
so
fuck
we formed
it.
a company. So I needed a guinea pig, and I'm always the company guinea pig. So I took.
We really did. We just ripped your model. We didn't even know it.
I probably ripped somebody else's off too, because it's just really kind of somewhat common sense. Like, let's just do it this way.
Because you don't want to fuck other people over.
Yeah. So I just completed my master's from Queen's University in Charlotte. So I took my master's thesis, renamed it.
MFA or what?
MFA, yeah.
MFA
in creative writing. And took my master's thesis, had it edited one more time.
What'd you do, hire a professional editor?
Yeah, I found it was interesting enough. I was reading Taylor Brown's book called Fallen Land. And then he threw a shout out to an editor in Wilmington, North Carolina. So I tracked the dude down. He gave me one final edit because the book had been, you spend 2 years workshopping a book. It was close to being ready. We do one more little round and started plugging it into learning the hardcore production process and how to get a book out. And so began that, and then a great writer's friend named George Weinstein got his rights back from his publisher, and will not name his publisher. Their deeds will speak for themselves.
I was about to call him a turncoat.
Well,
Benedict.
Royalties owed should be royalties paid.
Yep.
Yeah, but like I said, we'll be judged by our deeds.
No taxation without representation.
Yes. Yeah. So George is president of the Atlanta Writers Club. He runs the Atlanta Writers Conference twice a year. Helped a lot of writers find agents, find a broader audience. He wrote 4 beautiful books, brought them to us. We republished those books for him. Then we ran a novel contest, found 3 other books from that novel contest. Also found Mickey Dubrows' book, and just began the process of putting the staff together. And, coming up with the editorial process of taking somebody's manuscript and getting it ready for publication.
Figured it out, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that makes a lot of this possible, for better or worse, is money. And, we've got our co-founder, John Kay, who, we're fortunate enough that he's totally behind us. He was the one who came up with this idea. He's the reason we're here. And Katie's the reason we're still here. Our producers.
I can believe that.
Yeah. So, obviously you've had a career before this one.
Yeah.
What happened, and what allowed you to accumulate the necessary funds, to have you sitting us?
I spent 25 years in the heavy equipment business, selling bulldozers. I did bulldozers every way there was to do bulldozers. I sold pieces of them, parts of them. I sold them used. I sold them new. I worked for the manufacturer.
So you're telling me that you also leaned on some construction sites for spare parts and really just mobbed yourself up.
I
mean, when you're talking spare parts, you know.
I was we were. My brother-in-law used to call us Sanford son, but I was in the used tractor parts business, man. It's like a used junkyard.
Yeah.
I did that. It took me to 24, 25, 26 countries doing that. I worked for the second largest manufacturer of heavy equipment in the world, Komatsu. Sold a lot of PC 200 hydraulic excavators.
I'll act like I know what the fuck that is.
Yeah, you just go ahead. Y'all call them scoops, okay? People around me call them scoops.
Sure.
I laugh at you. But anyway, so I mastered that. I was good at it. I was a partner in a heavy equipment business, tractor equipment based out of Birmingham with some great friends that are still there. I exited that business in 2012. My father, Type A, worked since he was 9 years old selling newspapers on the corner, right?
Yeah, this is a Warren Buffett type.
He's the self-made kind of a guy that
I mean, Warren Buffett started, I think, on a newspaper route.
Yeah,
so
I think
I'm sure a lot of people did.
Yeah,
back when people read the newspaper.
And that's one investment Warren Buffett will not make anymore is newspapers. But anyway,
he's a smart guy. And I'm sitting here with the newspaper behind me. But
I left them in 2012, and my father had dementia, and so I had to go. As much as I was reluctant to go back for a family business, I went back to help him.
And what did he?
He was in the real estate business.
Okay. That's usually
and he'd been in the heavy equipment business for a long time, but you can't have dementia and run a heavy equipment business.
Yeah,
you can't have dementia.
Well, also
run any
real
business.
estate, I feel like, is the retirement job of the successful.
Yeah,
you know?
My father had been doing
once you start flipping houses and shit.
I've done that.
You know.
Yeah, the heavy equipment business and real estate ran in kind of parallel because we would put branches like in other states and cities, and he did the real estate. So that's kind of he had a knack for it. So I went and helped him and got him my own real estate investments. So that's why I call myself a real estate novelist, not to rip off Billy Joel, which is it's kind of okay.
Yeah, but he's a musician.
Yeah, just being my father's son, who we're just deal makers. My grandmother, who was from a small town in Alabama, actually went to school at Columbia here in New York, which is in the early 20s.
Wow,
was not a normal thing.
Maybe she knew Gangy.
Could be.
Yeah, I really need to go check on my grandmother's legacy. Anyway, she marched in suffrage parades. She went back and she had started her own newspaper, right?
Yeah, that's right around the time. What was it? Suffrage was what, 1920, 1919?
1920s, yeah. So she ran her own. My grandfather was not the best in the world at holding jobs. So my grandmother supported the family, and it taught them the entrepreneurial spirit and taught me the same thing. So.
Wow, that's funny because my grandfather, I don't know if your grandfather was like lazy or something. I don't know what the hell.
He tended to drink.
He tended to drink. Okay, yeah. My grandfather was nothing like that. He worked and he didn't drink or anything, but he was an asshole. So, but yeah. So my dad came from that, and he's a workaholic too. So, anyway, yeah. So you want to talk about your book a little bit?
Well, I think one thing we should shout out is how we met. First of all, because we came. You came to us, or we came to you.
We came together.
We came together.
Yeah.
We were brought into
we thought,
this
as we were
union
discussing before, we had the thought, and then it became a reality. Yeah.
through our book designer, our mutual book designer, Olivia Kroom, who's probably one of the best literary citizens out there and does incredible work. I mean, the cover, if you've seen the cover for Brian's book, it's
I've only seen it from across a darkly lit bar.
Let's show. Yeah, let's get an audible reaction.
This is gonna be great.
Okay.
It's gonna be fucking sheer excitement. I know it's
brilliant.
Yeah. So here,
I want the true reaction here. Ready?
God.
I'm literally doing an elevator pitch.
He is.
It's coming up.
Oh.
I love it.
Wow.
That's usually the reaction I get from people.
So we were. Olivia's is
the artwork was done by Sean.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
But that really.
I came up with that idea, like on the spot. Like I pulled it out of my ass, and then Sean just starts drawing it, and I'm like, "That's fucking it." Like
that's
the dude could be. What do they call it? Those like those sketch artists for police. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they call those people.
I think they call them sketch artist.
Sketch artist, yeah.
What's really cool is that the breaks in the chapters in between, she took the joint from
They got
the
a
front.
little
Did she really?
Yeah,
and
little
she
splits.
put there's little spliffs throughout.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
pretty
would.
cool.
So she also did the. Yeah. So
She did the whole interior, everything, yeah.
we found her. I forgot how, but she's been one of the biggest blessings that we've had. That we've been fortunate to find.
Yeah,
and
she's great to work with.
She's great.
So everyone who's looking for...
You know, it's one of those things you
designer.
mentioned as a literary citizen. In order to make it as an independent whatever, some of that's got to come from you're not getting. It's not certainly is added value, and Olivia is added value not just in the quality of her designs. And I've had people go, "Who does your book covers? They are fantastic," but it's the care that she puts in them.
Yeah.
And the give and take back and forth, and are willing to kind of bend with the process.
Well, that's what so when we met with her about, many, many months ago when we were first starting and met with her about book designing, and we were talking about our goals and what we want to do with the press, she was like, you know who you need to talk to? Steve McCondichie from SFK. And we were like, what's SFK? And that's when I started stalking you a little bit and reached out.
I didn't feel stalked.
And and the second that we popped on the phone and I heard your accent come through, I was like,
Katie was very excited. I thought she was going to leave me. I thought it was over. Yeah, no, I mean, also just, to step back from all this, it's like, it's so valuable to partner with people. I mean, I
think even if you're just a writer, not even a publisher.
Yeah,
like
but
writers,
we talked a lot about that side, about community. But also, I think people, especially in the arts community, are afraid to talk about the business side, which you're not, Steve, which I'm really glad about. It's like, whatever your feelings on capitalism are,
right?
you know, fine. Like, it has problems.
I'm a fan.
It
has
problems.
I see it. I see it every day.
But at the same time, this is the reality we live in, and we accumulate this money so we can make things that are worthwhile to people. That's the whole point of this, and that's so like this whole idea that I don't know. I do think there's this idea that or this dissonance that artists especially have in their head between generating capital,
right,
and like all that entails, and who's suffering because of that, maybe, I mean,
yeah.
But if you go down that line, we're all sinners in America. We're a part of the American empire. It is what it is,
Yeah, man.
But like, I really like your approach, and I think you jive with me and John's like whole business minded aspect of this, because if we don't have money and we can't make a lucrative business out of this, we can't give the resources to our writers. I mean, take it from me, like, every penny that I'm making from my book is going to go right back into this business, But yeah, so
you can't have a mission without the business.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't know. We've got a lot of ideas, but just from your end, on SFK's end, like, what has been most successful for you, and like, what have you discovered? Kind of putting you on the spot. I know there's
that's a good. That's
every day is a new thing. Starting a business,
it is a good question, because there's the idea of, hey, we're a small press and we make, these literary books, and we don't care if only you and your cat read them, type of model.
Yeah, which is fine.
And then there's the other fiercely independent model. And for me, I'm at a point now where I'm having to, that's maybe not an equation that I can straight up solve, but there's polarities that we can manage, because there is the mission and there is the business. There is a need to put out something of a literary standard, but then there is also the independent publisher who wants to find an audience. And for me, we're in the process now of we're really kind of narrowing down our processes in our market and how we operate as a business, and have that mission, because one of the things I've learned is that if we're going to tell a million tales of y'all means all, that means you got to hear from both sides. And that, not to hate.
So yeah, synthesizing those two sides are definitely, it can be difficult, especially on like the, I think it really culminates in the submission process. I mean, okay, that's kind of like egocentric of me to say, because I'm the one who reads all of our submissions, but seriously, like when I read a book, there is sometimes in the back of my head, I'm like, man, this probably could reach a wider audience than is the circumference of my liking for this book. You know what I mean? Like, how much I like this book isn't totally equaling how big my eyes are getting in terms of like what this audience can reach. Does that ever happen to you?
Constantly.
Yeah.
It's you like a book, shit, the world will like it, versus, is that what you're?
Basically, I like this book, right? I like it.
Yeah.
But I think the market will love this book.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so, like, reconciling that can be difficult. I mean, I haven't had to pull the trigger on any of that yet. Like, I'm still kind of reading all these things, and, like, the only thing we have on the books are books that, you know, we are the few books of people that we know, or, like, you know, recent acquisitions and stuff, people we've met.
You know, but one of the common themes that I've heard editors and publishers voice over the years is, you know, they always get the question, right? How do you decide which books to publish?
Right, yeah.
And maybe I'm just looking for the voices that confirm what I want to hear, but the overwhelming majority, and that one of them that comes to mind is Emily Bell, who, you know, they got to have that, they got to love the project because they're going to be with it for a long time. You know, you're going to take it from one stage to the next.
Read it a lot of times.
You're going to read it a lot of times. You're going to be with the author a lot. So there has to be that. At the same time, there's got to be, from my standpoint, there's got to be where is the author, and how do they measure success? Where do they want to? What's their metrics for success?
So do you talk to them first?
That's one of the first questions I've learned to ask authors over the years.
Interesting.
Is tell me how you measure success? And if, you know, I get a lot of different answers. One dear friend of mine who wrote a novel I really wanted. I'd read it in workshop and wanted it bad. And she's a nationally recognized book critic, right? And she'd written a novel. And for her, success was a, you know, substantial New York Times book review. And I had to say, I'm probably not sure that I'm going to be capable of pulling that off for you. That's kind of a stretch for what I believe our capabilities were at the time.
It's very, very far from a guarantee.
Yeah.
Quite the opposite.
She went somewhere else, right? And then I had another author who said, he's from the low country of South Carolina. He'd written a story about the Gullah Geechee people. His name was Rutledge Thomas. And Rutledge wanted to have a book launch at Blue Bicycle Books in downtown Charleston on King Street. And that was his measure of a launch party. And he had a kick-ass launch party. He sold 151 copies of his book, still to this day, an SFK record for one single event. So, you know, that's for me, in talking with the authors, how do you measure success? So it's a balance between the author and, you know, the work and what they want, how they see success and what they're willing to do. And is there any connection between how they see success and how we see success? If it's, you know, I want to get 2 copies to give myself and my cat, I'm not sure that allows us to accomplish what we need to.
Might as well self-publish. Yeah.
Well, yeah, right.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's a lot to say about that space. And you know, I tell people all the time, the average reader that buys your book at a bookstore or buys it at their favorite online retailer does not care how it got to them. They don't spend much time looking for the logo on the spine, or they don't. I mean, as publishers, I know you look here, you look back here, and we flip to the page, right? That tells us the metadata. That's what I do. But people that read books, avid readers who are after, you know, people that read 14, 15, 16 plus books a year, they just care about the story. And does it take them to the place that they want to get to, right?
Yep. That's essentially how I viewed books until we started publishing them. Well, until we're
So what changed?
Because I had to know. That's it. I mean, I had to look through that data, and I had to see. I literally wrote that. You see that copyright page? Like, I literally wrote that myself.
Yeah. The first time you do one of those, you're like,
You also see what people are doing that you really like, and you're like, okay, $2 Radio. I like the way they print their books.
Yes,
they do all
their
like
books are beautiful,
friendly and everything. Unfortunately, it's not like a financially stable thing for us right
Hopefully
now.
in the future, yeah.
But in the future, it's a goal for ours. So like now we're searching in the books, like to see what other people do. Coffee House, they put out great looking books.
Yeah, that's interesting because in that you pointed out the aspirations of where we want to be, but at the same time you also mentioned the reality is of, you know, your source of funds varies, and with that source, the requirements to perform also vary, and what your criteria for your own success as a publisher varies, right?
No, I mean to bring up a controversial example, I mean, like, I read a book a couple of years ago about like what it means to be a great leader, or, you know, kind of like a book on statecraft, you know? And they talked about tons of people. Abraham Lincoln was one of them. And, like, you know, people have these images of Lincoln as, like, you know, the bellwether of emancipation and everything. He was. He's the one who made it happen. But the things he had to do, people don't understand. He had to make deals with people that were shitheads, you know?
Yeah,
and
politicians,
Yeah, so people that were against
even within his own
abolitionism.
party, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And so the thing is, like, we're not printing books right now that are totally eco-friendly, but the thing is, like, you have to make concessions in order to get to the greater good, you know? And it's like, we'll get there one day. But if we can't make money, we'll never print an eco-friendly book, you know? And that's just a metaphor for everything.
Yeah, but you also got to remember that a lot of the ways people are reading books these days
are on the phones, ebooks, which is why we're doing those too,
and listening to them,
and which is the ultimate eco-friendly system, to be honest.
Yeah, so
unless you talk about digital, waste.
About and the cobalt in the African mines, but let's not go there. Right? That's what we're talking. That's the shit. That's the shit I'm talking about when we're talking about living in America. We're all sinners, but
from the stench of the ditty to the stench of the grave, man. It's born in sin and dies in corruption.
Oh,
is that verse right there? Because you know
no,
I wouldn't know.
That's Robert Penn Warren.
Okay,
all the King's Men. I mean, I heard that in college, and I'm like, I'm going to run with that one.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
that's a keeper.
I got a question, since we're talking about, you know, stability of presses and whatnot, and doing different financial endeavors. So you have SFK Press and you have SFK Multimedia.
Yes.
What is that?
So we have Southern Fried Karma is like the mothership. Mm-hmm. And that's when, if y'all had some P-Funk, we'd play it right now, but we don't.
We can plug it in.
I can play.
Plug in some P-Funk when we do that.
Man. Get some maggot brain. Hell yeah, man. I love it.
So we're the mothership.
Okay.
And from that, we have SFK Press. Mm-hmm. We have our zine, literary zine, The New Southern Fugitives, which publishes short fiction, short essays, visual arts.
Is that print or is that digital?
It is digital.
Okay.
Eco-friendly digital. Yeah. It comes out twice a month.
Oh, damn. That's a lot.
Yeah. And we pay, here's the weird, we're talking about making money, and it just shows how stupid I am at it. We don't charge you to read your stuff, and if we print it, we'll pay you. Or publish it, we'll pay you. Right? Which is not common these days.
How much does the zine cost?
How much does it cost to run?
How much
for the
to
reader.
read? Yeah.
Oh, so if we publish a short story, you mean we pay $100?
No, I mean,
no. For people want to read it.
Oh, it's free. It's a whole inverse
'Cause
model. It's free. The zine is, you can subscribe to thenewsouthernfugitives.com for free.
That's what I assumed. I mean, because they usually even people that, you know, even the new age editorials or whatever, you know, you can get an imprint, you know, costs money, or you can just sign up for free and you got the ads on the side. So that's helping me. I don't know if you guys are doing any of that, but
but we will start next week. You know, that's a model we got from Brother Mark, right?
So what, are you selling advertisement on it or anything? No. So you're just,
we're trying to, the New Southern Fugitives, which is named after the fugitive poets out of Nashville in the 1920s, right? Robert Penn Warren being the most famous, called Bullshit on the Lost Cause, or Agrarian, Anti-Industrialization. We have a similar voice to that. It's a very diverse work, but I'm doing it to build a community.
Yeah.
Yep. I was about to say that's the parallel to our 3D series satellites that we're trying to build. Yeah. It's kind of like we both have our community pet projects. I mean, they're not pet projects. They're actually like the foundation. I mean, they're the foundation of why we're here. You know,
our foundation is community.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's got to be. And the neat thing about community is it raises everybody's performance as individuals. Mm-hmm. When there's a community,
makes people care.
Yeah, and it's also the literary community is one of the best places to have the conversations this country needs to have. We're not going to solve the problems, whether it's traffic or poverty. We're never going to solve them, but we're going to.
I love how you included traffic with poverty. I'm not even fucking kidding right now, because when I drive on 495,
I drive on trafficking,
drug trafficking.
Are you in trafficking?
Yeah,
human trafficking. You're not too. But you were talking about auto traffic, right?
Yeah, I'm talking
because
about,
when I'm on 495,
the pet peeve that people have, and probably in the first world anyway, it's a number is they get. More people lose their shit driving in traffic on the way to church, right?
Yeah.
And that's one reason I quit going. I'd lost Jesus by the time I got there.
Because of traffic.
I had any chance. You get.
If Moses parted the sea he better fucking come down here
and part the 95
and part 495 around the Beltway around DC, because that shit is over for me. I will not drive between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. You will not find me on that road.
This blasphemy just lost us whatever religious listeners.
No, we were just talking beforehand. I got nothing against religion. I'm just saying.
If you can go in that, for me, getting 4 kids ready to go to the 10 o'clock Sunday school, my shit was gone. Right? It's just a struggle,
but poverty's a problem too. Yeah.
Yeah. So traffic. Anyway, those are examples of unsolvable problems, like a tangent.
Yeah.
So to have a problem. One of the conversations that I'm the most curious about, being a Southerner, is the old South versus the new South. We're not going to come up with the answer to solve that, but we can talk about each other's hopes, each other's fears, and we can try and build towards our mutual hopes and kind of be warnful or mindful of what kind of fears we need to avoid.
Yep.
One of the things that helped, if my mission needed a kick in the ass, a year ago, the neo-Nazis held a rally a half a mile from my office and in between my office and my house. They rented for $35 the little Greenville Street Park, which is best known for where you get your prom pictures done, right?
Damn, we got to make these permits more cost prohibitive, man.
It's like First Amendment right. You can't do it.
So, raise the price. That's all I'm saying.
So it was on the tail of, after Charlottesville, the community freaked out in 2 ways. What's going to be the public safety response? And they nailed that one. I mean, we had drones, we had copters in the air, we had guys.
This was after Charlottesville?
Yeah, we had guys with the riot gear. The park
was
literally fenced in.
Yeah.
And the neo-Nazis were late, right? So that,
Bubba
didn't know.
Hate fest.
Typical.
It's back to that traffic thing again. The racist got.
Well, see, now, maybe the traffic's a blessing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's that Buddhist positive.
I was just listening to NPR yesterday. They were doing, because Tony Horwitz died. Do you know Tony? He wrote
I saw where he
Confederates in the Attic. Yeah.
Yes, right. Okay.
And he was really involved with this kind of old South, new South, where he felt that for him in places in the South, the Civil War was never over. The war's just taken a new face or
dimension.
New
dimension.
New dimension in the
modern
world.
It's the same dimension.
And, it's not being fought on the battlefield. It's being fought in the digital battlefield, or people are
it's not an all-out war, but it's not. Here's the thing that the Southerners don't get. Only one side is still fighting, and the other side just looks at us like, damn, it is muggy-buggy and bigoted in the South. I think I'll go to the Dominican Republic for my vacation.
Yeah, and also they just think if you can push everyone that's bad or fucked up or whatever, bigoted, whatever you call it, to the far reaches of our society, marginalized, and that's going to work. It's not.
No.
It's the same thing as I've been researching for my new book on drugs, addiction, etc. And one of the prevailing theories that rings very true is that we have this idea that if you punish addicts, they're going to stop taking drugs. But no, if you make their situations more unfortunate, they're just going to fight harder to do the things that they were doing in the first place, So, it does.
They just threw up some barriers.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so, I agree. I mean, I think we, in a lot of ways, have just cloistered them into their own little circles. It's like these little terrorist cells, and it's they're not going to communicate with us. Why would they?
We got on both sides, we got hate, right?
Yeah.
And then there's in the South, especially, there's that mass in the middle who's watching the Price is Right, at night or whatever. And as long as the next guy that comes on down doesn't have a neck, swastika on his neck, right? They're going to be okay with their lives, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But within that middle is also the literary community where we can have these conversations. And there's other communities out there that are places to do it. But I'm plugged into the literary community. So I think that's where we need to have.
But that's what we did a episode of the podcast. I think it's like episodes 4 and 5 where we were in Little Rock and talking to people down there about starting artist communities. And we're working on an artist salon in Little Rock right now, starting one. But the overwhelming feeling was, one, I mean, people were like, why do you want me on a podcast? I'm not smart enough to be on a podcast. And we're like, what do you mean? We're like having a great conversation right
and the
now.
feeling was not just podcast. It's like you understand quickly that what they're saying is, and they might not even realize it, but is I'm not smart enough to do any of this stuff.
There's
or whatever
like an
you're
overwhelming
doing. You know what I mean?
feeling where these people are vastly intelligent. Like friends that I've grown up with, they're super vastly intelligent, but feel they're not qualified to have those conversations. They're not qualified to be in this community. And we're like, no, you're 100% qualified, and that's what we're trying to do is to empower people to feel qualified to have those conversations, because that's the only way this shit is going to change.
Yeah, but so let me ask you a question. Are the conversations, one part of me wants, when I read things like the liberal redneck manifesto, right?
What is that?
It's a book you can buy in the South.
Nice.
And it's about liberal, progressive Southern.
Self-explanatory. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. An Appalachian Reckoning. In certain books that are coming out that seem to be to that space where you talk about, where we're really kind of having some conversations, and there seems to be a movement to build not an old South or a new South, just a better South, right? Mm-hmm. But there's always a part of me that just worries that the glass ain't half full. The glass has probably got a crack in it. And
I'm sure.
You bullshitter. You just sat here. Steve just sat here before we got on the podcast and said, and we asked him if he was a glass half full guy. He said, I'm a glass half full guy who knows the water truck's coming and who knows the guy who's driving the water truck.
but aren't we all?
Yeah.
I mean,
no, we are.
So
it's true.
if you're a writer, I'm changing the subject here.
I totally agree.
There's a passion for the writing. There's got to be a discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And that discipline is part of the business thing we talked about, right? So it's the same way with the mission. There got to be that man that I'm going to do this. We're going to make this.
Well, if you can't,
but some days the struggle is fucking real, right?
Yeah, I mean, what you just said is so true. If you can't change your mind, then that's the definition of problematic. Like, even going down to like mental health.
Yeah,
depression is defined by mental rigidity, like an inability to stop thinking the way you're thinking, But just to jump off that, I'm going to ask something that I've wanted to ask on this podcast to someone at some point.
Steve seems like the right guy.
Yeah, he does. And especially because
sure
Steve sits up straight, leans back in chair.
Yeah,
wiggles
I know.
ass a little bit.
I can, we can tell Steve's not a Trump voter.
No.
We can all tell.
Yeah.
However,
I did not vote for the current president.
I have family members who are, and I have conversations with them, whatever. I want to know how, we have this conversation you're talking about in the literary space. To me, it's not really as much of a conversation as I'd like, because I don't think we're having a conversation with the other side, especially here in New York. It's a lot of it is, if you are on that side, I don't even want to hear from you. And it's like, I want to see, what happens if you found a book from someone and you found out that they were a Trump supporter? It's hard for me to reconcile in my head someone with literary merit who could vote for Trump. Like I do find that hard to believe. And I'm not saying that to necessarily slander Trump voters. Like I'm saying, like, the way you have to think in order to vote for that man is kind of necessarily non-literary oriented. Like, you kind of have to be a very kind of like,
I think you'd have to be genre focused, maybe.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Maybe some sort of
romance novels.
Bodice rippers, not just romance.
It's it's a lot of bottom line thinking. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's A to B. It's not, the depth is not necessary. It doesn't help us, which is total bullshit. If we don't talk about the depth in our lives, then what the fuck are we doing here? We're not really addressing problems.
You don't think somebody could be vastly intelligent and just have a certain amount of dissonance between, or an ability to compartmentalize?
Intelligence doesn't
a
necessarily.
lack of empathy, yeah.
But you don't have to be inherently liberal to be intelligent.
No,
thank
that's
goodness.
clear,
Yeah.
right?
But that's
definitely
what
clear.
you think someone could,
or liberal, whatever you call it, non-Trump. Anti-Trump, whatever. You don't have to be intelligent to be that.
I'm trying to think of.
You have to be self-minded to a certain extent. And I know this. I've talked to Trump voters. It's like you've got to think about yourself, whether it's yourself as an individual or whether it's yourself as an American state. You know what I mean?
But it's the same way as with my half full, half empty. I understand why they make that choice. I fundamentally disagree
right.
with. I mean, fundamentally,
I totally agree
on so many levels, right?
Yeah.
Not just from a personality, policy, what it's doing to the fabric of this country. Vehemently disagree with.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
In this country, it's their right to vote for them, have their opinion. Could they be literary? The question is, could they be literary citizens?
I think Brian's question is, would you publish them?
That's both of my questions.
I don't know
that's my.
So here's what I'm going to tell you. And this is a change in my mind here recently. Mm-hmm. If we're going to be y'all means all,
and I did want to get back to that exactly what that meant.
If it's going to be y'all means all
exactly,
then I'm going to have to, and it's not.
So
it's not one's over here, and it's not somewhat rigidity. I have a guy that I have become friends with, and he is a retired Baptist preacher, and he writes fiction. He's written a series of Southern fiction, and he and I have and we're doing a literary festival together in Moreland, Georgia, in the fall. Mm-hmm. But because his name is Mike Brown. Mike will have the conversations, and Mike will listen, and Mike knows that both sides need to be heard. Mm-hmm. So he has the ingredients that's got to be there is a degree of open-mindedness.
Well, but so we're not talking about if somebody brings in a bigoted work, because that's obviously not inclusive.
Of course. I should have made that clear.
I'm not bigoted, but
it's because there are plenty of Trump voters out there that are not bigoted, to a certain.
So what I'm asking is, what work would put the question up where you would have to challenge your own thinking and say y'all means all? So
yeah, if they do not embrace the y'all means all, and they're so rigid that they only see this is the way it's said in a book that was written 2,500 years ago that my grandmother and my parents gave to me and told me to memorize and read and do everything that was in it. If it doesn't fit that book, I'm not doing it. Mm-hmm. I ain't got no patience for that.
Yeah.
No, and patient maybe probably is the right word.
But is there?
I don't.
But is there a fear that it's going to come back to you at some point?
How do you mean that?
Even if this person is a sparkling woman or man, anything in between, whatever, So you know what I'm saying? Because if you, I'm serious. This is a hot button issue for people.
So let me give you.
You could get thrown under the bus.
I'm going to give you the flip side of it. All right, the struggle I've had. So I was fortunate enough to get a piece done in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and great interview with Suzanne von Otten, the writer. We did a nice little interview, right? 45 minutes, whatever. And she was getting ready to do the piece, and she comes back to me and says, "I got a follow-up question." She said, "I went on your website, sfkpress.com, and to sum up her words was, wow, you're
white.
Awful white." And I said, you know what? I know that.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Do you mean your authors?
Yes. Yeah. And probably everyone involved. I mean, because
if I just came from the book, came from the book expo. It's kind of white down there too.
Oh yeah,
sure.
So
the literary world is very white. That's the thing, and this is why I bring this up, because it does seem like there's a lot of hypocrisy within our own world, in the sense that I don't see representation from another political attitude. Not that that's necessary to literature,
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like at one time we want to bring everyone together, but let's even the panels I went to at AWP, it's still I'm Jewish, but I am the least pro-Israel Jew you'll ever find. I mean, I have discussions with my family all the time, because I think being pro something means you're anti something else.
Right.
And so what's the fucking point?
Yep.
The whole problem is choosing sides.
Yep.
And so, I mean, I go to panels, and I went to a great panel on Palestine. Excellent readings, great, intelligent people, and a lot of things said, but it's amazing. And nothing, I can't take anything away from them, because their anger is so real, and everything, it all was genuine to me. But it's where do we draw the line and say, how do we stop this? Bringing Palestine up is probably the worst way to enter this conversation. That's probably even more difficult than, liberal versus conservative, or whatever you want to call it. But, At some point, the violence has to stop, right? Like,
Right.
And a conversation has to start, or
Well,
else
so
it's
wait,
just we're in a cycle.
I want to loop back to what you were saying. She said, you're very white. So your response was like, yes, and then
Yeah,
what?
you nailed me. But because we had become, we had signed after our novel contest. We looked at what the authors, and we had to be very purposeful in the books we're selecting and continue to select for SFK Press. And we that's one reason why we go out to AWP. That's one of the beautiful things about the New Southern Fugitives. It has a diversity within it that we don't have at the press yet. So I feel like we're getting that voice out there, but we've had to reach out to historically black MFA programs in around the South.
That's what we've been trying to look into that too.
We had Jennifer Baker on the podcast a couple episodes ago. She is an editor and she works in the publishing world here, and she runs the podcast Minorities in Publishing. And
that was a great podcast.
Yeah, one of the really good points she brought up is, okay, yeah, you want to make your author lineup diverse. Who are your gatekeepers that are bringing in these? So you're hiring these new people. Are you looking specifically to bring on POC editors?
Right now we're bringing on people that are very much intent on finding those. And if you go to our website for the contest, the biggest lettering on there, we are looking for these type of authors.
And it's such a challenge because for so many reasons. And the first one is, right off the bat, the submissions we get, I'm like, yeah, these are 99% white people. And so what I get is, so it's not a matter of it's a matter of so if I only get so few POCs or whatever, we're looking for women authors, we're looking for anyone, we want to be as diverse as possible. But the thing is, hell no, we're not going to sacrifice quality. And so what we need to do is find a greater volume of those submissions, because that's what it's all about. It's and it is more of a challenge because that's the fact. Minorities in publishing is the key word is minority. There are less of those people. And so we have to dig deeper. And it's a big challenge because you can't give up, you can't sacrifice the quality. And so it's just, you have to shoulder that burden. That's what that podcast was about. It was really about how do we shoulder that burden, because it really is all of our jobs, because we all put ourselves in this position,
But I think that's why, for us at least, why we're not blasting out to the world that we're taking submissions. Yeah, we're saying it on the podcast, but we have cultivated, our podcast is kind of like our community. We have it's not just like Twitter where it's out to the whole world. This is a niche group of people who really like us and our message and what we have to talk about. And so it's a community we're building. And so we're really digging deep into those communities to, one, bring more people in, and to find those people. We're going out to readings, hearing people, and
And that's the thing people should know. It's hard. It is hard work. And that's why I'll say it right now. Me and Katie and I have had copious discussions on this, because I'm trying to constantly rein us back into all right, we got to get a good book, and Katie's constantly going, yeah, but we got to get a book from someone else. So,
here's the challenge when you start stacking those. Okay, I got to it's got to be, the book's got to be there.
Yeah,
and the author's got to have some entrepreneurial sales skills.
Right.
Oh, and we're looking for those diverse voices.
All that shit that happens to, and the first things you talked about are about individuals. They're not about skin color. They're not about demographics. They're not about anything. It's about quality, And so all of that has to be there. And then you go, okay, then we say, where can we find this talent, And it is a huge challenge. Even talking about this, I feel like I sound so aimless and abstract, but it is really hard.
Yeah,
but that's really
the nature of the fun too.
It is. But on my end, it's been frustrating because I want to get another book under our belt, and we have Annie, she's working on a book for us, and her book is a series of essays about coming out, essentially, realizing she was gay, and then et cetera, et cetera. And that's great. That's a great that is an element of diversity. But then it's okay, well, she's a white woman, And then it's what's the next, And we don't want to stop there, It's constantly, it's a constant effort. That's we're never gonna completely figure it out,
But at least you're working on trajectory, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you're
The
going
process.
for. You're going for, right?
Yeah.
That's all.
I know this
it's your intention, right?
Well, we've been recording for about an hour, so I think we should turn the spotlight back to you, Steve, and hear some of your words.
Yeah, let's do it.
How you feel about that?
Let's do a little reading.
I'm I don't have to read on my phone, do I?
No.
No, you don't.
Oh, that's right. I got the book right here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Damn
That's
it, boy.
right.
Wake up. It's Thursday afternoon on West somewhere Street.
147th. Come find us.
Try not to say that. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to just read a few. This is, you're talking about pivoting. Mm-hmm. As much as I've talked about the author entrepreneur and how important that is, it's a skill I've had to learn myself. I'm comfortable if you want to talk about, buying why the PC200 LC-8 is the most valuable excavator on the earth, right? Or things like that. But doing it with your own work, that's really getting out there.
I see you on social media. You're building it up.
Yeah. So anyway, so the latest novel I just released in March I started writing it thinking it was going to be one book in 3 parts. And I got in about 50,000 words in the first part and said, whoa. So I'm going for a kind of a historical fiction, Patrick Melrose kind of connected 3 smaller novels. It's called The Parlor Girl's Guide is the first one. And it's, I describe it as Scarlett O'Hara meets the girl with the dragon tattoos. I'm really interested in Southern womanhood because I mentioned my grandmother, so I know that it's different, right?
The grandmother who went to Columbia.
Grandmother who went to Columbia who ran her own newspaper for a number of years, right?
I like that little
Runs in
detail.
the family.
Yeah, so she, I just thought about that right this second. Anyway, so that's where the story is set in 1926 in a little town in Scott Station, Alabama, which is where my grandparents had met, and it's a town that's no longer there. That's how small it was. It's in south of Montgomery, in rural farming community, like they got in Arkansas, right? So I started this young girl there, 16 years old, and I'm going to take her on a journey.
Awesome.
So it starts with her. She finds these 2 guides, but I'm going to just read the first few pages where we
Great.
kind of
Beautiful.
get to meet.
Let's do it.
Book designed by Olivia Kroom.
Yeah.
That is actually... I'm actually kind of jealous of that cover. I love my cover,
Yeah,
but
that's a
that
beautiful
cover,
yeah.
I wish we could show it to our audience.
And
right
it was
now.
laid
Look
out.
it up.
You can look at
Look it up.
sfkpress.com.
Exactly. All the books are arrayed orderly.
Yes.
In an orderly fashion.
And the interior was laid out by April Ford, our associate publisher. It's a beautiful looking. They both did a great job.
April Ford, who will be reading soon.
Really, that's fantastic.
She's great.
She doesn't. I tell her this all the time. You're a badass.
Yeah, her poem. I'll just say for our audience out there, we did you guys had your own little party. It was actually pretty big, but open bar. God, I got fucked up. I was the last reader, and I don't even remember what the hell happened, but people were laughing when I read. So I hope I read a funny part.
It was
funny. But yeah, she read a poem about
hygiene.
That's somewhat of a euphemism. It was fucking killer.
And she was bold enough to say, I'm not a poet. And she just killed it.
Yeah.
Anyway. So April Ford laid out the interior. She's also served as one of the editors on this book. So tip of the Canadian hat to April. We're going to start in with Thanksgiving 1826, Scott Station, Alabama. Molly Lingo awoke from her angel nightmare to the sound of her father singing, Jesus Loves Me, her favorite church hymn. Heaven's gates he's going to open wide, he croaked, shaking her shoulder. He jerked down the threadbare blankets covering the family's front room. The late autumn dawn bled into the room. We will wash away my sin and let his sleepy-headed children come on in. Molly felt cold dampness on her back. The foul odor of her little brother's urine, like soggy hay, made the first inkling of sunlight seem harsher. The smell nudged her away from her stubborn dream. Don't expect Stanley will ever learn to use the chamber pot or piss off the front porch like his pap. Her father folded the blankets into wadded squares and stacked them in the wash tub. Stifling a yawn, Molly knew she needed to get out of bed and strip off her gown, but what she really wanted to do was slap her mother right across her floozy face. Tell her she was a no-account child for having an ill-begotten baby, thus obligating Molly to share her palate and take care of him. Molly knew that folks in Scotch Station looked at her with pity and shame whenever they saw her toting Stanley on her hip, assuming that she was as loose as her mother, and raising some Peckerwood's bastard child with Alma May Lingo as her mother, no one would ever believe that she was a virgin. Baby brother will crawl in with his mama, her father said, if she'll let him. Molly bent over and kissed Stanley's plump cheek. She never had the heart to push her 3-year-old brother off their contorted cotton mattress onto the grungy plank floor, which stood only a few feet above the palmetto bugs and spiders that lurked underneath their shack. A grandson of a genuine Johnny Reb ought not to be hunting a Thanksgiving turkey, he said with a high-low pitch of joy and dread. Damn carpetbagger holiday. You remember what Mr. Hinton said about hunting on his land? Molly coerced her feet onto the floor. Zachary Hinton can kiss my narrow behind. Her father trudged in the kitchen. As Molly rinsed her face in the leftover water in the basin bowl, last night's dream shoved its way back into her thinking. The 3 angels always appeared in her father's off-kilter plots, like remnants of cloth blown together by the breeze. Shining like ruffled emeralds, the dark green tobacco leaves were broad and waxy. The field was next to the peeling schoolhouse, withered vine clinging to the clapboards, and tucked between the town folks' church and the red brick grocery store. The angels stood tall and wide, towering over her father in their white linen suits, their faces clean-shaven and pale as china clay, making their rosy cheeks glow unlike the tan, scraggly look of her father. As she pulled off her soiled nightgown, she recalled one of the angels clutching her wrist. His soft hands were coarse against her skin, and she smiled at him with her eyes fixed on his heart. The cold in the vision quickened her change into the long John's flannel shirt and dungarees she'd laid out for their hunt. Her father clanging on the coffee pots pulled her thoughts back to the duties of the morning. She tucked her dark brown ponytail under a bandana wrapped around her head and pulled one of her father's tattered felt hats over her top. From across a wooded field, Hinton's overseers would believe a dad and his son were going on a hunt. Although the field boss had come around to check on Alma May and the baby 4 or 5 days after Stanley had been born, worrying that her father had ventured off on a bender the night after the midwife had left, leaving the lingo plot unattended at the peak days for planting cottonseed. Still, her hunting outfit might fool him good enough until her father could snag a holiday turkey. Her father's spite for Thanksgiving, like his first name, Skillet, came from his grandmother. After both his parents drowned crossing the Etowah River during a flood, her father came to his grandparents with only 2 possessions, a brass locket with a rhinestone quarter moon on it and a cast iron skillet. Great-grandpa Lingo had lost his right arm at the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain, and Molly had heard her great-granny Lingo's opinion of Thanksgiving, carpetbaggers, and John Wilkes Booth before. The Lingo family cherished their feuds. Molly sat down for a small breakfast of thick coffee and her father's week-old buttermilk biscuits, noticing their dried-up gold and white edges. She stretched like a barn cat, arching from side to side. Molly believed her father had decided to ignore Lingo family tradition and Zachary Hinton's warning not to trespass on his turpentine plantation again, not because he felt blessed to be a hand-to-mouth tenant farmer and a clumsy thief, but because her father was afraid of Alma May. She was mean. Her mother wasn't awake, but she'd made it clear the night before that she wanted the widest rump turkey in the county to put on her table, and not any slimy squirrel meat or bony quail breasts that they would have hunted on their own tenant farm. Some of her father's fear of Alma May had to do with her size. He was a slight man, shorter than Molly, and Alma May was a full-figured woman with the muscular arms from hand-washing loads and loads and loads of clothes all over Perry County. But most of his trepidation was because he tended to have a mild disposition. He'd only ever threatened to beat the children or the mules. Lacing up her black work boots, Molly tasted the backlash of her father's coffee. She walked out the shack's back door, slamming it behind her. "Don't be so god-awful loud as to wake legions of demon," he said. Molly took the lead to Stonewall, their swayback mule. "You're cut from the same bolt of fine cloth, that's for certain." So that's our introduction to Molly and her father and their journey turkey hunting, which leads to an unfortunate encounter with Zach Hinton, which in part of the story I got a minute to kind of talk about some of the things
sure.
I'm trying to flush out in it.
Yeah, I had one question, but go ahead.
Is the first part there is has to do with the whole economic land equality in the South. There was James Agee, the famous author of Before I Lay Dying, probably not as famous as it looks like he's famous. He was worked with a photojournalist and went through places like Arkansas and Alabama in the 1920s and 30s, and that book was just published in like 2012.
Yeah.
About tenant farmers. So I'm really trying to. It's a subject that really interests me. My grandfather worked on a turpentine plantation in that area. Huh. So that whole economic thing was where Hinton. There was in each county in the South. There was a core group of white patriarch that controlled everything, right? And they did everything they could to squelch any type of dissension, white, black, whoever, right? Mm-hmm. So that's I'm trying to illustrate what it really took to escape that, and what an individual would had to agree to some point till they said enough's enough, and I'm going to break away. And Molly gets to that point later on where she breaks away.
Awesome.
Yeah, I really want to read this.
She has the help of a couple of guides. So that's the Parlor Girl's guide.
One of my questions is, I'm the northerner over here, is kind of like, wow, there's a very musical and fresh quality to the prose. Like, it's very southernly idiomatic and all that stuff. Do you get that reaction from Southerners, or is that par for the course? Is it like, oh, we all know the parlance,
There's a certain amount of everybody understands that's a Southern writing style, and I'm
so it's not as impressive to them or something.
No,
because to me it's like, wow, this is another dialect.
So it is, one of the things that I'm really concerned with in writing that way is a critique I got when I first. Actually, when I submitted this chapter to a workshop like 5 years ago, that was awful hee-hawish.
But that's not a criticism. That's a
that's
an observation. But that's an observation.
You don't want to be hee-hawish.
You don't want to be, and so there is to the beach, especially early on when you're trying to get people in the story. I hate to say lay it on a bit thick, but. Which I can do with my accent, give or take, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there is a matter because you're trying to transport people to not just the South, but the rural South in 1926 in this particular place, right, where that's the way they still talk.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not hee-hawish. It's just how we sound, right?
That's what I'm saying. Saying hee-hawish is to me what I'm hearing now from your guys' reaction is that that's not inherently a problem. It's that maybe it was inorganic. It was too much. You were really pushing it. Okay, so you had to. Okay.
But so one of the editors I worked with towards the end on a copy edit was trying, and she different generation, younger generation, lives in Ohio. Mm-hmm. Kate LeBron, great editor. Mm-hmm. She and I exchanging what part worked. Like this is how they sound and. So the dialogue, I'm okay with being like I didn't understand what that guy just said. Mm-hmm. Like you remember the first time you had to read Mark Twain in school, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is a different language. So the dialect in the dialogue is I'm good with. It's in the exposition that I was really trying to watch.
Yeah.
And because if you're doing a novel, we all know one of the things you have to avoid is everybody sounds the same. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's getting everybody to have a distinct voice. So, Molly has to have her kind of come from this particular space right now. Skillet, her father, comes from a different space. And we meet Zach Hinton. He comes from, I could say whatever I want. Like I'm, like I'm at my own table. Mm-hmm. Because the whole county, you're on my land, you're at my table, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I didn't, I just wrote this character that I'm really interested in. So it goes back to, I mentioned this is a third book. What I envision is, and y'all got them here all over. I just noticed that, but they're up 2 or 3 floors. In the South, the psychics are on the side of the road, right? Mm-hmm.
We got one on 151st.
Okay,
a tarot card reader.
Yeah, but you got them they're up in the windows. I see them, right? They're like 2 or 3 flights up. I wonder, how does somebody become a roadside psychic? Mm. So I had this vision of this woman in 1954 who lives on a farm with 2 men, and is a psychic, right? She sells vegetables and she gives readings. And then that woman becomes Molly. She don't die, right? Unless it's like, Game of Thrones. Is how did she start, right? And so in this first novel is how she finds her way out of the South, out of Scotch Station, and how does she find this her own voice, which she connects to this vision that she has in this dream, which she thinks is a spirit, right? Which I don't know whether it is or not. I mean,
you don't. Let's just leave it at that.
But that's part of the fun of the book.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
this is a Katie Rainey book, right here.
And I had to rewrite the ending. It was the last thing I did was rewrite the ending again. And in the process, you like kind of have the book finished when you're like, it's going to go out next week. But I found that space really where it can be in between, whether she's this other ethereal guy that she believes is her dead grandmother. We're back to grandmothers again. Is speaking to her from beyond the grave, or whether it's just PTSD, right, and some sort of coping mechanism she's got. I don't know.
I love it.
Yeah,
Wild.
I love it. Before we close, I'm gonna throw a little anecdote because you talked about editing down like the dialect or whatever. My developmental editor George Sawai, he's been on the podcast a few times. He's an original rabbit, OR as we say. He read one section that was heavily idiomatic and kind of like the southern parlance was there, and it was down in the bayou, and he was helping me work with it because like some of it was like, oh no, this is more like Alabaman or like some shit like that. But then he got to this one dialogue part, and he's like, man, like what the fuck is this? You make us sound like Southerners sound like idiots. Like what is this?
He hush.
And it wasn't even that. He was like whatever, like unintelligent,
Okay.
And then I was like, George, they're deaf. Like they're speaking in like, the pidgin, like, because their sign language is their first language, and he just like smacks his forehead. He's like, oh, and I was like, yeah, don't worry. I'm going to strengthen that little detail there for you. Yeah. It was pretty funny. Yeah. Because I mean, like, just to enlighten people, if they haven't heard the third episode, deaf folks have all types of dialects. I mean, there are people that were
Really?
My mom was raised to speak first. She didn't know sign language until she went to college. And, she's fully deaf. She's more deaf than my dad is, And then, you have my dad who, was ASL first. And, like, you can hear it in his grammar and stuff like that. And so when I translate that onto the page, he's like going, this is what you think Southern people talk like? It was really funny. But anyway, yeah, buy the book, people. Sounds awesome.
Buy all the books.
Buy all the books. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Just
gotta
read a lot of fucking books.
Don't get your new tropics. Save your $47 and buy the books.
You could get, yeah.
Well, also just, I'm going to start shouting this from the rooftops, but if you want great literature to continue, you have to buy
Invest
books
in it.
and support.
That is the
and
social
support,
contract,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yep.
If we want to live in a world where the mind matters and thoughts matter and words matter, and we can come up with these imagined realities together, shit.
Stop spending money.
Civilization is built off our imagination.
Yeah.
So
do yoga at the house. I don't know.
Do yoga at the house, right?
Turn on the heat.
Don't get your nails done only for special occasions.
There
Buy
you
a book
go.
instead.
Ow.
all right, we good?
We're good.
We're good? Okay,
Thanks,
I'm-
Steve, for being on the podcast.
Yeah.
No, I
This was
appreciate
great.
y'all
It's
having
been
me.
wonderful.
Of course.
This is-
we'll do it again because you know
This is
what?
cool.
Next time you're in New York, I want to talk about this rewiring the brain and your
We're also going to be
transition
doing
into-
some in North Carolina.
Yeah,
we got to do it again.
Yeah, man, that was fun.
All right, I'll close it out now.
Okay, that's it for today's episode. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and review on whichever platform you're listening. You can get in touch with us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Animal Riot Press or through our website, animalriotpress.com. This has been the 24th episode of the Animal Riot Podcast with your host, Brian Birnbaum, and featuring Steve McCondichie. Transcripts for our deaf and hard of hearing animals are provided by Jonathan Kay, and we are produced by me, Katie Rainey. See you later, you filthy animals.
Click, word, yes sir, it's the burn. Bombing on y'all and getting gully as the fern. I don't know much about